we are back in the living room and we are very happy to tell you that we have finished the job. Yay! The whole ceiling is now free of clay and straw. Well, it's not clean, but it's free. We started working on this project many years ago. I think it was quite early on in the whole project when we worked in that very, very corner over there on the other side of the room. There was a little room there and we had cleared out the furniture, and there was a wall that we knew was not a structural original wall. It was put there later on and we definitely wanted to get rid of that wall. So we started working on that project. We started working on clearing the ceiling, especially near that wall, so that we could eventually take it down. And we could also see that back in that room there was a bit of the ceiling that was hanging very, very low. So we had a suspicion something might be going on. So we started preparing and cleaning that beam, getting the ceiling off. And that's when we first encountered the very first structural problem with this house. That beam was damaged. The beam that went right along that wall was very severely damaged. And we started to suspect that they might have built that wall not just because they wanted to create a room, but to actually support that beam. It stopped us in our tracks for a bit, but we ended up supporting that beam and then getting rid of the wall, and then decided to just make sure that we could see what was happening. So we cleared that area of the ceiling and we found some major structural problems right away. Step 2 in this project then was to see how all the other beams were. Now that we knew that a couple of them at least were damaged, we had the sinking suspicion that there might be more. So we started by removing the whole finishing layer of the ceiling and then making sure that we could see all the beams. That was also already a couple of years ago that we did that. And it sort of made us realize that there might be more problems, but they weren't really all that visible yet, because we were only seeing, if this is the beam, we were only seeing this bottom part, because on the side of the beams, everything was still filled up. And that's when we thought maybe it would be a good idea to really get rid of all of the clay, even all of the stuff that is in between those beams and around those beams and up those beams, to get rid of all of it so that we could really see what was going on. But that would be a major job. Both in simple hours that it would take to do it, the dust factor, the waste factor, the time, the effort, it would be huge. And we had friends tell us, please don't start doing that. It's not really necessary, and it will be so much work. You will regret it. So actually we kind of left it there. We were going back and forth. Will we, shall we, should we, do we want to, do we not want to? One of the reasons why we really wanted to was also that if the beams weren't that bad, we could actually keep them at least partially exposed, which would look really, really cool. The reason why we didn't want to do it was we know that it would be a major dust fest and very hard, tough work. But in the end, we kind of decided that we would do it. And then we procrastinated on that forever. And then my family came. They said, we are coming with a big team. We do want to have a job for you to do. What do you want us to do? And we thought, oh, maybe. If we have so many people working together, maybe it's doable. And you've seen it in a previous video. They enthusiastically tackled the ceiling. It was a major job, but with all of us together working, we actually got at least a third of this whole room cleared. All of the beams that we did in that weekend were completely free of clay and straw and other materials. And it also became immediately clear that it was the right decision, because we uncovered more damage that we previously couldn't see and that we didn't even know that was there. But after my family left, there was still a lot of room still to tackle. And we decided that this time we were not going to procrastinate on it any longer. Over the course of the rest of the spring and summer, we worked on it time and time again. We didn't film it all because, well, it was boring for us. It would have been absolutely boring for you. We filmed some of it just so that you could see what it was like. But usually would do a stint a day where for about 2 hours, both of us would be standing on a ladder, just getting rid of everything. And then spend at least another hour making sure that we got everything out of the house again. Because one of the problems of this project, not only the fact that we had to work above our heads and it was kind of hard work, and it was very dusty work, which meant that we had to work with full protective gear. But it was also the dust, the waste management of that project was huge because it all had to be carted out with buckets, and that was also a very big factor. But we pushed on and we made stints every day for a long time until we got each and every one of these beams cleared. So with this project, stuff kept falling. It was a constant stream of dust and clay and bits of straw that were coming out of these ceilings. You really can't imagine how much of it there was. At first we were kind of optimistic and thought, oh, we can reuse this if we just separate the plaster bits from the clay bits, then we can all reuse it and we can recycle everything, and very optimistic, and that's how we started. So when we did the first layers that were more like not cement, plaster layers, we separated those from the layers that were more clay and straw. And we started gathering them up. We now have a big pile of this plaster material, and we started filling up big bags with the clay and straw mixture. We have now 8 big bags completely filled up with that stuff. We will reuse it probably in the project on some, maybe on walls or maybe on smaller parts. But we were not actually planning on reusing it back into the ceiling. So we didn't really need an endless amount of that stuff. And besides, we will still be gathering more of it when we tackle other parts of the house. So we had to come up with something else to do with all that surplus of clay and straw. Maybe you remember that our land is a bit sloped. At the back of the big barn, it's about 2 meters higher than at the front at the street level. And when we put in the hedge in the garden, we could already see that on the outside of the hedge, the ground level was higher than on the inside, and our garden then slopes even further. So we decided to try and at least level that area where we put the hedge in, and just dump all of the clay in between all of those bushes. It's 250-year-old clay and straw. It's a very natural material that probably was sourced from around here anyway. We dumped it there over the summer. It has been rained on. We can already see worms coming up through it. I will probably mix it up with some compost in spring to make it even more alive. But over the years, this will just work itself into the soil and become part of the soil. That really was a nice way to get rid of all of that material, and we probably will be doing that in the future as well.
So this is one example of what we found. This beam is basically gone from here all the way to here. There's still a part that's okay, but as you can see, it doesn't look very well. What we can see is that they have tried to repair this in the past. There's metal here and on the other side, and there are metal parts here and here to relieve the tension on this beam. And this explains something we have been experiencing when we are in our living room. The floor moves a little bit when you walk over it. And we initially thought that was just the beams, but obviously that should not happen with these thickness of beams. So what really happens is this beam can move because it's rotten, and with these metal parts here, they function a bit like the spring of an automobile, and they make it dance like that. Just slight, but you can feel it when you walk over it. Obviously, this is not good, and this beam has to be repaired. This beam is even in worse shape. This is the original beam. You can see it's been eaten away, rotted away for quite some distance. You also see here a metal part that they used to tighten it to this metal part here. And you can see this here is a wooden plank that they simply attached just to be able to finish the ceiling here. Yeah, obviously we could not have left this in. For all the people who have had doubts if it was a good idea to do all this work, this is why we did it. Oh yeah, before I forget, at this moment the ceiling here is sturdier than it has been for a long time, because now on all the iffy places, the bad beams, we have put scaffolding under it, supports. This is another spot. There used to be a wall here. You've seen me tear it down ages ago. And well, the thing here is that the beam has been hollowed out in this area here. It's been completely eaten away. So there's only a small bit left that does the supporting, or did the supporting I should say, because we have put scaffolding and supports under it as well. But in this case you can also see that the beam that's on the wall itself here is also heavily damaged. This part of this beam will have to be replaced as well. So this is the first part that we finished, and actually we showed you this already, but it's been so long ago that you may not remember. This beam here is completely rotten away for about a meter or so, nothing left of it, and they made repairs with other beams which don't make any sense at all. We've shown this to some experts and they all say this is a bad repair. They should never have done it this way. And also here above the window you can see that the beam lying on top of the wall is badly damaged.
What's next for this project? Well, in this room, of course, it will be repairing the parts of the beams that are damaged. They don't have to be, we have already talked to carpenters about this, and we know that they don't have to be replaced in their entirety. You can simply replace the bits that are no longer solid with new wood. And then after that is done, we want to clean them, get all of the thousands of nails out of them and really make them pretty. And then we want to keep the bottom part of the beam exposed while we fill up in between the beams again with, what's that called, Lex?
Insulation?
Yeah, insulation material, and of course a nice finish, and make sure that we have electricity wires and everything going in those spaces.
Let me tell you what our vision is for the end result. These are the good parts of the beams, and they will stay. What we will do is for about the lowest third of the beams, we will we will clear that up and make sure that it looks nice. And then above this 1/3 of the beam, we will put the lowered ceiling with insulation on top. So what you get then is lowered ceiling will probably become white, all white ceiling with 1/3 of the beam, of each beam sticking out.
But before we can do that, we actually have a lot more beams to clear, because it also has become clear, it also become visible now on this side of the room, that those beams run all of the width of the house. They are not just in this area of the living room, they actually go all the way through the other side of the house. At least that is how it looks now. And it doesn't really make any sense to start working on these beams on this side when the other ones are still hidden and we don't know whether or not there is damage on that side of the house as well. So we will have to keep on working on ceilings for the foreseeable future, probably over winter, and clear the ceilings in the kitchen and the hallway downstairs, so that we can see how those ends of the beams are, because it's usually the end of the beam where it's resting on the outside wall that it's bad. The in-between bits are fine. So we have to see those ends as well. But luckily for us, those jobs are a little less daunting as this big room is, because the rooms are simply smaller. The areas that you have to clear are shorter. So one stint of work will get us a lot further in the kitchen and in the hallway than it did here in the living room. So we'll just keep on keeping on, and there will be a lot more dusty work for us in the future. But at least this part of the job is done.